just like his country, Hamilton's young, scrappy, and horny. This is Hamilton's Spoiler.
This is Spoiler. I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. Hey, yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. I'ma get a scholarship to King's.
Nice.
That was
I didn't have
awesome.
the closed caption on. I couldn't tell what they were saying for a lot of it. But hey, this is Pappy, your host, recording out of Louisville, Colorado. We have a special episode tonight about the musical Hamilton. I don't know if you call it a movie or not. We'll probably get into that. But let's introduce my co-hosts, starting with special guest Rene. Hey, Rene. The question that we have tonight is, what's the next Hamilton? If you could set a musical in any time period, when would it be?
I've probably seen more musicals than most of you on this podcast, but I will say I really want to see 17th century just for the costumes and all the wigs.
I like it. In the United States, like North American 17th century?
I have an obsession with Marie Antoinette
Okay.
due to the size of the gowns. So specifically that one.
Like a Les Miserables adjacent. I like it. Let's go with Stevie next. And also Stevie...
Pass. Actually, you know what? Just go ahead. Hit me with it, Pap. What are you going to ask?
Stevie, what do you like better, Cats or Hamilton?
Okay, Hamilton on Disney Plus versus Cats the movie?
Yeah, I would just say it's a random Sunday afternoon. You gotta pop in
Cats
either
all
Disney
day.
Plus.
Cats all day.
All right, when would your musical take place?
My musical would play. Well, obviously, Source Code is what I pitched to be the next great musical, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. The songs that would come out of that would be amazing. But, time period?
Okay.
Man, I think a musical about Woodstock would be incredible. Or just like
Ooh.
the 60s and the Summer of Love would be
That's a good idea.
awesome. So I'll go with that.
I like it. Some Haight-Ashbury, some San Francisco,
Oh,
bouncing
yeah.
around a little
Throw in
bit.
some Monterey. Be great.
Definite trippy sequence at some point where people are like flowers are flying.
Also
on the
starring
stage and
Jake Gyllenhaal. I want that in the record.
Josh, let's go with you next.
Hello, this is Josh from Indiana, Goshen, which is basically between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But let me get specific and put the plot in motion. At the end of this pod, I got a tiny notion. A yes dog so hard, Viggo Mortensen needs some lotion.
Oh, no. That was awesome.
I had to get that out of my system early. Historical standpoint into musical. I think that's an interesting question, Pappy. I want to say Star Wars. Like, hear me out.
Jesus.
Nothing but
Our fabled history, Star Wars.
Like, I want it to be like of the fans that experienced A New Hope, Star Wars proper when it came out, and just like their reaction to it, and casually like weaving in and out the like famous themes that John Williams wrote. I don't know. That just struck me.
So wait, this is a prequel Star Wars? This is like an OT, or this is just like a adjacent to some time period Star Wars thing? There's a big time period.
This
there in
sounds like
Star
if
Wars
Kevin
time.
Smith wrote a musical.
I don't know. You pick your poison, I guess.
I would actually watch a Kevin Smith musical.
So would I.
Mikey, I said you're going to be the wild card in this pod. I feel like you don't like long things. You don't like musicals.
That's 100% true.
But you also don't like movies with too many white people, so I thought this might be right up your alley.
This is why I harassed you guys on Twitter. That'd be funny.
What,
That is
Mikey,
100% true, Pap.
yeah, I know you. You're my good friend, but what time period would you set a musical in? That is something I don't know about you.
You know, I thought this was going to be an extremely boring time period to watch a 3-hour rap musical about, but it was actually pretty entertaining for the most part. And after watching it, I was like, well, you could really do any time period. So I wanted to see something that I personally want to see. And I have this movie, Seven Samurai, sitting on my desktop for like the past month. I'm waiting to watch it, but I'd like to see maybe a samurai Broadway musical. I think that would be pretty cool. I think you just need to choose a time period with awesome costumes, and then the music will just come, pretty much. But yeah, I thought this was going to be so boring, but it was actually the opposite. It was really entertaining.
Happy to hear that. You get a little like stomp action too with the samurai armor that they have on. That could be kind of cool. I'll spare the audience my Japanese accent. Times have changed since we did the Tokyo Drift episode. So.
Thank you.
Times have changed. But last but not least, Brett from Fort Wayne, when would your musical be? What's the next Hamilton in Brett's world?
1984 New York, the takeover, the attempted takeover by Gozer the Gozerian, Ghostbusters the musical.
That's beautiful. And on brand.
Thank
Let's
you.
get to the task at hand, though. Enough of these fantasy musicals. We have and that's the kind of thing that I wanted to sort of start off with too. Hamilton has existed for 5 years, and it's been the biggest sort of Broadway show in that time period for 5 years. But Brett, if like an alien landed on Earth and knew nothing about like Hamilton as a premise, could you describe it to them? Like what's going on here? Because it's pretty weird.
He was born, I believe, in the Virgin Islands or something like that, and he was super smart, and everyone paid for him to go to America.
I was getting it more at like as a show. You know what I mean? Like, what is the premise of the show?
It's a 2 hour and 40-minute rap opera.
I have his exact thesis if you guys want it.
It's a rap. Rap and singing. There's maybe 14 words that are actual spoken word, and the rest is all rapping and singing. That's what it is.
But Pixie, you see so many musicals. How many of them do they sing through it constantly? I feel like usually there's ebbs and flows and breaks, right?
There's a minor amount where the entire plot is done through music. Whereas let's compare it to one of the longest running ones you guys podcasted on, Cats. There was a little bit of actual like words that connected the songs together. This one, all of it connects together. There might have been a few asides, a very small amount, specifically to a death, where it was spoken. But other than that, it was all songs. But Lin-Manuel Miranda actually said that this was his thesis. It was a story that was always a story of America, then told by America's then. But, sorry. It was a thesis, it was a story that was told by America, told as... Fuck, I can't remember writing.
Pixie, it's like
the thing of it is,
America's...
It was America then, told by America's now.
Yeah.
With the color of people that are the future of the country.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. America now, because there's like a lot of... Not a lot. There's a fair amount of like modern day influences, right? And there's a couple modern day puns. And then I think, almost most importantly too, it's an all minority cast. So, like all of the founding fathers have been basically recast by brown people, which at the time, like, it
was intentional.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's existed for 5 years. It was like a huge deal. Like the biggest show on Broadway, really hyped up. Then Disney bought it for $75 million. This was actually recorded back in 2016, but like the format that we're consuming this in, how would you describe that to the audience? Because we're obviously not seeing the play, and it's not like a proper movie musical, right? It's not Hello Dolly. It's something else.
Yeah, this is something I struggled with. Also, I apologize if you hear snorts and a little bit of whimpers. My wife just got called into work, and I'm now holding a pug on my lap. So,
Aww.
Yeah, she's a little adorable. But, yeah, this was the hardest thing for me to really engage with. I don't think watching this on Disney Plus was how Hamilton was supposed to be experienced. I compare it to, like, watching a Christopher Nolan movie be played out on stage with, like, the original actors, but, like, a black canvas behind them. And, it just... I don't know, it seemed like a really weird way to consume
Stevie,
this play, didn't you think?
I'm with you 100% going into this, because it was like they're half-assing kind of a movie, and then it's not truly Broadway because you're not really there. So it's almost like the worst of both worlds.
I used to be a proponent. I'm a proponent of, like, I think Broadway should have their own Netflix streaming service so more people can experience these musicals.
Same.
Because they're hella expensive. But
I think they make so much money.
At the same time, it's really hard to engage with. Like, I think Broadway musicals are ones that you should see live.
Agreed.
Yeah, Hamilton tickets are $300, so it's not like normal people can go see it.
Did Hamilton come to any of your guys' cities?
Probably.
When it
Chicago,
toured?
closest to.
It came to Seattle, and I was in the lottery, but I didn't get selected. Because you actually had to enter the lottery to get chosen.
I definitely hear everything Stevie's saying, but like for me, this one gets a huge asterisk just straight up because of the pandemic. I feel like it was kind of forced into this, so I don't know.
Well, that's a great point too. I mean, Stevie and I talked a little bit like earlier today, and I said, I couldn't, and I was being a little silly earlier, but honestly, my hearing is just like shitty, and I couldn't distinguish the words they were saying just from my TV setup in my living room. Now, I hope when I get like a better sound system or something, maybe that's on me, but I wonder if like in an IMAX setting, like the mix, like this was supposed to come out fall 2021, and I'm wondering if in that kind of setting it would have been easier for me to understand, but at the same time, I was glad that I had the closed captions, right? That was helpful. Let me go back to you, Josh. You mentioned the pandemic. Would you say this is a shrewd move by Disney, and we'll get into Hamilton in a second, but I want to touch on, is this a shrewd move by Disney or a charitable move by Disney? Because it seems like they're giving up a lot of money.
It was brilliant.
But they got a shit ton of downloads as a result of this.
I love Lin, like his
Manuel Miranda.
Yeah, I love his reaction to kind of the backlash, just basically saying he did the best he could and spent 7 years on this, and it's not perfect, but he's going to stand by it. So maybe they're trying to take advantage of BLM a little bit, but it's kind of like almost like Chappelle's special coming out. Like the production value was a little off. Pappy, you're hitting on maybe the music was a little too loud in the mix coming through on this, but I feel like they're doing things that are unprecedented. So it's like this pandemic asterisk. I myself am giving it a pass for that stuff.
I mean, yeah, that's presumably there would have been some more post-production work on it, right? I don't know why they would hold it for this long, other than if that was the first slot. But let's get into Hamilton proper. Mikey, I think Brett was going to touch on it a second ago.
As a point of technical, it was shot over 2 performances.
Yeah, I saw that. 3 days?
Where 3 days, which is, you can see continuity errors, and if you pay attention like I did. One performance, there was no cast. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was only the cast. There was no audience, so they could actually physically have cameras on the stage with the actual cast members. Which is cool, but I think to Stevie's point, I don't know if this is like a movie. You know what I mean? I put that in my Letterboxd review. It's not a movie. It is a recording of a live performance, and that is a huge separation. Which a spliced recording of 3 live performances. You know what I mean? It's not like correct. And I think that's important, maybe to consider it. But let's get into Hamilton. It's been 15 minutes. Mikey, can you please describe Alexander Hamilton, especially in the first act? What's going on with him shooting his shot constantly? Oh my god.
Oh, he's shooting shots all right. He's shooting shots all over town. He's a playboy. He comes from nothing. He's an immigrant, and he's really trying to work his way up the ranks in like America. He's ready to fight in this Revolutionary War, and he wants to get the founding of America underway. So he wants to be on the ground floor when this stuff goes down. Mm-hmm. He's a white guy who wants power.
He's a little bit of a warmonger.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about history, so I can't say anything about the backgrounds of any of these guys because I really don't know history. So it's like I know a lot of them own slaves, and a lot of them are probably bad people. But Alexander comes off as the guy who he's I don't know. He's just like hardworking, and he comes from nothing, and it's. I don't know. He's a good guy, I feel like, other than his constant adultery throughout the musical.
I was confused by he's an immigrant, right, Brett? I think you were talking about that earlier, but they were talking about now he can't be president because of the whole affair thing. Did you understand what was happening there?
I mean, I don't think he could be president anyway. I think that's one of the reasons why he had people that he backed so he could have power that way. But yeah, I mean, he was an immigrant, I guess, but he's from like what St. Kitts and Nevis is now. So I said Virgin Islands, but
like southeast of Puerto Rico, I think, or something. which is probably
Yeah.
significant because that's where Lin-Manuel Miranda, his parents, is from. I think he was born in New York. But there's also, Brett, the characters of the Schuyler sisters. What's going on with them?
Angelica, Eliza, and Peggy. The Schuyler sisters. Angelica, Peggy, Eliza.
They're just women that don't really have any prospects because of the time, and they had to. I think the older one said, her job basically is to marry a successful person, and maybe that's one of the reasons why she couldn't be with Hamilton. That she introduces her to her sister, but she always loved him, apparently. So, and man, she was really talented. That
Yeah.
the older sister,
The actress Rene.
she won she won the Tony, so for a supporting role.
But Pappy, George Washington wasn't born in America.
Yes,
Was
he
he?
was.
There was
I
no
thought he was born in
America.
Virginia. That's true.
Oh,
jeez.
yeah.
So I don't.
Oh yeah.
I just think it took
Immigrants, we get the job done.
If you're born before America was a country, I think you got to pass. Alexander Hamilton actually helped draft that part of the Constitution that talked about being natural born to serve as president.
Well, and apparently they just change things willy-nilly. Like the person who gets the second place votes becomes vice president, and Thomas Jefferson just changes that. But I thought
The 12th Amendment.
my personal favorite stretch of the whole thing was the helpless, satisfied story of tonight stretch. Did anybody else
The rewind.
love that? Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
I like
That was
Satisfied.
great. Yeah.
Rene, I think they said she did, it was 5 or 6 words per second at one point. She was firing them so fast. Her and Davy Diggs had the fastest lines in their for their songs at one point in the first act.
I just might regret that night for the rest of my days. I remember those soldier boys tripping it over themselves to win our praise. I remember that dream like candlelight, like a dream that you can't quite place. But Alexander, I'll never forget the first time I saw your face.
The stuff with the Schuyler sisters, all of it was pretty good. That was probably some of my more favorite musical parts of the show, was the Schuyler sisters stuff.
Satisfied was elevated for me once I saw it acted out, as opposed to just hearing it for years and years previously.
That's interesting. Okay, so you're one of those people, Renee.
I am one of those people.
So,
yeah.
I'm curious because I had never been exposed to anything Hamilton before, and if you listen to the soundtrack, you basically are hearing the entire story. So, when you would consume it,
Almost.
would you?
You get 95% of it.
Was it like a book on tape for you? Were you imagining people doing things with no context? You know what I mean? Like an audiobook?
I had almost the whole plot, almost the whole story. And then there's a couple things that were left out. And as I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, they left that out. I mean, it was great. But as I was watching, I knew what to expect. I knew what was going to happen. But it was all elevated. It was increased. The performances were more in it, but also the physicality of it gave context. There were certain lines where they were doing things in the background, especially with the introduction when they talked about his cousin committing suicide. There was somebody in the background actually acting out how the suicide happened, which gave context to what was happening.
Sometimes the king is just off to the side dancing, which you probably don't
Dude,
get.
he's the freaking best, man.
Jonathan Groff came back specifically for that role. Somebody else was...
I thought
Somebody
Brett would
else-
like the king best. I'm not surprised by that.
He was hilarious.
Well, no, he was the funniest. I mean, I think, whatever, just go.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Groff is hilarious.
Jonathan Groff, Stevie, has been in a couple spoilers movies. What else do we know him from?
Frozen 2, man.
Christoph?
Frozen
And
1.
Frozen 1, and Mindhunter?
What'd you think of him in this movie? He is the only...
It's not a
we should say
movie, Pap.
Caucasian
It's a
person.
recording
Okay.
of a live performance.
What did you think of this Disney pandemic holiday special that dropped?
I thought he was definitely the funniest part.
It was intentionally funny. He was written specifically to be contrarian and contrasting.
Yeah, and he was extra sassy on stage. He was really fun to watch. Plus,
That's a good way to put it.
Jonathan Groff has an amazing voice, so definitely one of the highlights of Hamilton, I'd say.
Cause when push comes to shove, I will kill your friends and family to remind you of my love. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
Was there anything else from the first half, Brett? I know you mentioned Daveed Diggs. I probably more preferred him as Thomas Jefferson, but I thought Lafayette was just fucking awesome too as a character.
Yeah, no, he was incredible. He did like the fastest raps, and his French accent while singing and rapping was really good. He definitely earned that Tony Award that he won. I also thought George Washington, like as far as male singing voices go, was like the best. I thought he did an awesome job, and when he left the stage, you kind of knew for almost the last time, like he was pretty emotional. Like the crowd, like realized how amazing it was. So he was really good.
And he maintained his cadence too. So he had a very metronomic rapping cadence, and he maintained that very consistently throughout the whole show.
And like, there's such a distinct image Americans have of George Washington, and I thought Chris Jackson just brought this gravitas, because obviously, from a physical standpoint, he's imposing like George Washington, or like we see him in pictures, but he doesn't look like the paintings that we've seen, a million times. And like the way that he sells George Washington as a presence and as kind of a legendary figure in this movie, I thought was great. Stevie, though, there's so much that happens in this first half. Like I said, there's the origin story of Hamilton, the whole Revolutionary War basically happens. But you said you preferred the second act of the movie. Could you just give us like a high level? It's a love triangle and adultery and a whole lot of intrigue going on. What happens here to Hamilton?
Okay, so there's a lot going on in this musical, and it's so gosh darn fast and disjointed. It's really hard to keep up at times. But Hamilton has a side piece. Her name is Maria Reynolds. And if I remember correctly, her husband blackmails him? Is that right, Pap?
Well, it's like this whole thing is that they make it seem like Hamilton... And Josh, I want to know how you feel with this. They really couched it in that Hamilton's been up for 2 weeks, and this woman comes over, and she needs money, and he takes her home. Like, is that... I don't know. How did you interpret that? Because when I was watching it, I was like, I'm assuming I'm seeing this from Hamilton's point of view. I'm so kind of supposed to know that maybe this isn't exactly how it went down.
We knew exactly what he was going to do, and we let him off the hook.
Let him off the hook.
Yeah, basically. I mean, she like forces herself upon him, right? And she's like destitute, and her husband's whoring her out. So he's basically like pointing the finger at everyone else. Basically, what I mean to say is, I think he'd still be canceled.
As a tactic, Josh, I'll go back to you. How do you feel about the Reynolds papers? That it seems a very selfish route to go. I know you've been exposed, but maybe it's the answer to cancel culture. Maybe you just out yourself, and then you're good.
This reminded me of a Brett movie, Locke, where he kind of purposely dismantles his personal life so that he can like be professional or like hold up to some ideal or something. It's very similar.
Yeah, she like asks, she's like, "Do you love me?" He's like, "No, I do not love you."
I just met you.
That's for all the Locke fans. Yeah. I know there's a billion out there.
Did you get the sense, or did anyone get the sense that like they had done that scam before? Like, I feel like that wasn't the first time they had run that number.
Yeah, sounds like it. Seems like it.
Did you get the feeling it wasn't the first time that he had slept around, though? Mm-hmm. It's just the first time he got caught, probably.
Hamilton was a mark.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too. I think they found, like, somebody who had notoriety, and they could milk the mark for a sufficient amount of funds.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of tragic too, but by all accounts in the film, Hamilton's obviously portrayed as a protagonist, and like we know the kind of stuff that Jefferson was doing to the people that he owned, and it's just shitty that Hamilton has an affair, and like he's basically disqualified from being president at that point, but Jefferson was allowed to go on to be president. But Brett, what is Jefferson's role in the second act? Because he's honestly my favorite character, arguably, in the whole thing. The energy that he brings is just fantastic.
Well, his role is the counterpart to Hamilton. They're the... you could say James Madison as well, but they're the two smartest people. They have similar goals, but they have different ways they want to do it, and they're definitely political rivals, and they're the smartest people in every room they walk into. Unless James Madison's there, then they're all three the smartest. So, yeah, and they just clash just because they have different ideas of what they want to do for the young republic.
Yeah, and that clashing is like portrayed in Hamilton as a rap battle. Mikey, did you enjoy? I think there's at least 2 rap battles.
The first Jefferson
Are you
scene
talking
is
about
awesome.
the cabinet? The cabinet with the microphones?
Cabinet meaning rap battles, like one they have to convince Congress, one they're just convincing Washington.
Do you guys remember that YouTube series, Rap Battles of History?
Yeah.
That was really what I was afraid this was going to be like, so I'm glad it was nothing like that. I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that was kind of scaring me off for a long time watching this.
So, Mikey, like I said, you're the wild card for this, and I wasn't sure what you would think. What did you like about the rap battles? Because I'm surprised that you like them, actually, Mikey. I think that's cool.
Well, I know you guys said you had a hard time like hearing it and stuff, but I watched it with headphones on. I watch everything with headphones on now, and I also had captions on, so it was fine for me, and I didn't have any problem with any of that stuff. So it sounded great to me, but I liked how it was like easy to follow, for one thing. They do a really incredible job of like explaining this plot through these rap battles, and it kind of like blows my mind how efficiently they're getting through this story. I don't know about you guys, but this is really hard, and there's a lot going on in the background too with the choreography, but it's like really impressive how much information you're getting through these rap songs.
Even just like the amount of words that are written to make Hamilton. You know what I mean? I'm sure like obviously a 2.5 hour screenplay, no matter what it is going to be a lot of words, but just the amount of dialogue that's said in this movie is really crazy.
There should never be a musical ever again that doesn't include hip-hop somehow. It's such an effective means of, like you said, getting so much info across.
If this was sang at a traditional like Broadway pace, it would be, I think they said 4 to 6 hours in length. But because it's done at its hip hop pace, it's actually the pace that the timing it should be.
We plant seeds in the South, we create and keep ranting. We know who's really doing the planting. And another thing, Mr. Age of Enlightenment, don't lecture me about the war. You didn't fight in it. You think I'm frightened of you, man? We almost died in the trench. Well, you were off getting high with the French.
Brett, you mentioned that Thomas Jefferson was the counterpart to Hamilton. There's another very famous counterpart. Yeah, they call me Aaron Burr because the way I'm dropping Hamiltons. Stevie, we haven't talked about him at all, and I know that you hate Hamilton, but could you explain...
I don't hate Hamilton. That's so unfair.
Of Aaron
don't paint
Burr
me in that light, Pap.
The role of Aaron Burr as a foil and kind of, even up to the end here, because we haven't touched on him at all, and I think he's a pretty fantastic character.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun evolution because they actually start out as friends.
Ish.
Yeah, it's a fun evolution because, like, they start out, I mean, I would say as friends, as much as friends can be, but eventually he ends up becoming, like, his arch political rival. And it seems like every step that Hamilton makes throughout this play, like, Aaron Burr is just gunning for him. Like, I know, no pun intended, because he ends up getting him at the end, but, like, he's gunning for him the entire time, and it's really fun to, like, especially during, like, the rap battle scenes, too. It's really fun to, like, watch these two actually go at it. And plus, I think the guy who plays him...
Oh, Leslie Odom Jr.?
Yeah, he does amazing.
Yeah, he's awesome. What was their difference in politics, other than, like, Aaron Burr is just more hesitant, often, more often than Hamilton?
They were on the same party lines, and then there's clearly a line in the musical where he said, you switched party lines because it was convenient. because you knew you could get a Senate position.
Brett, did you get emotional at the son dying?
I mean, no, but
Which I did not know about. That was a spoiler to me. I learned that as I was watching it, you guys. I did not know he died.
no, I did not get emotional. I had learned about it when I listened to the soundtrack a few months ago, so it's sad, but I'm not really the emotional during movies type person.
Was there something there with like shoot your shot and like at all of these duels, supposedly the Hamiltons just shoot up in the air and none of them actually take a shot? Is that supposed to be something?
Yes,
You
it
miss
is.
100% of the shots you don't take. Alexander Hamilton.
Larry Bird, Michael Scott. Okay, so it took a child dying and like Hamilton's whole life falling apart for him to learn the lesson that Burr was trying to tell him all along. And then a wise Hamilton drops such a knowledge bomb on Burr's head that he like explodes and wants to shoot him like Hamilton would have done back in the day. So they kind of like switch roles is the way I saw it, which is kind of cool.
I feel bad for Aaron Burr though. Like there's this whole plot where he's having an affair with a British officer and I think she has a baby or something, and the song "Wait for It" just absolutely slaps. But he's made
That's
into
a beautiful song.
He's made into a very sympathetic character, right, Rene?
He definitely has character growth throughout the film because it comes straight out the beginning. It says, "I'm the guy who shot him." Like, you know what's going to happen. They foretell it, and then you just watch it play out, and then you wait for it. And then, like, the way they did wait for it, I mean, I had already heard it, and then just watching Leslie Odom Jr. portray it, it just was beautiful and tragic all at the same time. And it was definitely something that I really enjoyed watching him do the portrayal of, and as his story went out, Leslie was one of my favorite performances throughout it.
And he's great, and I thought that this musical does a great job of showing a lot of perspective. There's one more thing that we have to talk about, and Brett, I would never have gone to you for this had you not put Cancel Hamilton in your Letterboxd review.
What? I didn't do that. What are you talking about?
Yes, you put the letters Cancel Hamilton in all caps, and I'm going to get everybody involved here because there's been a lot of pushback. But Brett, I guess, have you seen anything in terms of pushback that you thought warranted any merit?
No.
Let's just start there. Nothing. Okay.
I mean, no. People just like to complain about stuff. I mean, if you have a specific instance to ask me, that you can do that. But
I guess so. It seems like I did a little research on Cancel Hamilton, and this is like a hot topic. There are people throwing bombs back and forth on both sides, shooting their shot. But people are saying
This is news to me.
It seems to come down to if you search like Cancel Hamilton right now, there's been CNN pieces, Today Show pieces.
I don't think I need to. I have this podcast.
The criticism boils down to that it's glorifying a person who may or may not have been involved in the slave trade. I guess there's some allegations that Alexander Hamilton was involved in the slave trade, and in general, that it glorifies the founding fathers, who are people who own people in a lot of cases. Josh, the social justice warrior, where do you come down on this?
I think it's a fact his father-in-law owned slaves, and at one point he helped with the moving of the cash funds for slaves. It's horrible and it's terrible. Putting yourself back into that time period, being a poor immigrant, marrying into a rich father, how much power do you honestly have there? His father, that guy was a senator, as they point out too in this musical. So there's so much context here. I mean, slavery is indefensible, but I don't know. Is there a but there? I don't know. I'm very torn on this issue, Pap. Do you have any wisdom?
When we go back 5 years, there was pushback. There was 100% pushback, and you can find it from the right, rolling their eyes at making a cast of founding fathers black. It was very much like an inclusion thing. And now, 5 years later, there's pushback from the left saying that it's not going far enough. I would just caution especially any white critics like William Bibiani, who I have less and less respect for with every passing piece of media that he puts out.
Zero respect.
As a white critic, what Hamilton is going to age a lot better than you tearing down the biggest Broadway musical of this millennium that was written by a person of color and features basically an all-minority cast. That's the gross take. Like, it doesn't need your help to point out why it's problematic. That's my take. Now, if there's someone who's involved and like knows more about the African plight who wants to, write a think piece, I think both things can coexist. That this is an amazing work of art that exists, but there's also truths that aren't in it. But Brett, we've talked about this before, right? I don't think there's any obligation of Hamilton to be historically accurate. You know what I mean? Like, why are people looking for this for history?
There's one point in Hamilton where they purposely break the fourth wall and said, that's truth.
Didn't we kind of expect that historical accuracy in Bohemian Rhapsody, though? Like, we digged on that for being bullshit. Why is this fine? Why is this fine?
Well, Brett, you did.
Yeah, but the thing about Bohemian Rhapsody is it's still bad, even if they embellish the whole story.
Yeah, there's a difference. I will say those who are concerned about following up and actually hearing the information, Disney has the Undefeated Present, like a more in-depth conversation with the director, with Lin, with the actors. It's about maybe 35, 45 minutes. I watched through it, and Lin himself says it's flawed people who created a flawed country with ideals worth chasing. So when he was writing it, he was aware that everybody was flawed. He knew that we have a flawed country, and he says it outright. So I'm guessing at some level he was aware of the brokenness of these people at the time he was writing it, which is probably one of the driving forces on why he chose an all African American cast. Mm-hmm. And Philippa, who's was one of the leading Schuyler sisters, she's part Chinese.
What happened to Peggy?
Peggy was cast as Mrs. Reynolds.
But isn't that weird? Like, they made a point of being like, and the third sister, Peggy.
And Peggy. I did a little research. I guess she married very rich and died very young. It's Pat.
It's Pat.
The two last points on the cancel Hamilton thing. One, a lot of cancel culture comes down to the biographical context of the creator of a work of art matters. Like, we can't watch Rosemary's Baby because Roman Polanski's a creep. Well, by that same logic, we should give Lin-Manuel Miranda the benefit of the doubt. By all accounts, he's an amazing person, seems to be a great guy, handled the criticism, like Josh said, perfectly in stride, and seems to be on the right side of history. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And I don't remember what the second thing was, but I don't know. I would just caution against speaking out against something that's like this important. But that's all I have to say about that. Let's get to yes or no's, starting again back at the top of the order with Rene.
I've seen it 3 times so far. So yes. 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 But also, I have seen so many musicals that I hardly think yes. I actually watched it with somebody. It was their very first live performance ever, or the first musical ever, and it was amazing to experience it with that person. So yes.
Let's bounce all the way over to the east side of our podcast, Brett.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard yes. I didn't really care to see it, and then I listened to the soundtrack as part of this thing I did, and I really look forward to it, and I loved it, and probably something I'll watch again at some point. Hard yes.
Did you do the audiobook thing? Because I know you listen to a lot of audiobooks. Did you have a story in your head too when you listened to it and then you saw it?
I actually followed along with it on Wikipedia and stuff like that. So not
oh, cool.
It helps with the context of when you're listening to it. And also I'm a little bit of a history buff, so I know a little. I'm familiar with the time a little bit. So,
Brett, you said this thing you did. Care to elaborate, maybe?
Yeah, I listened to the Rolling Stone list of the top 100 albums of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. That's 401 albums I listened to in less than 6 months, and I did it all while I was at work.
So Jesus. This is one of the top X albums of the decade or something?
Yep. What number?
I'll look it up, Mikey. I don't remember. It was really good, though.
I'll go next. Go back to the west side, Louisville, Colorado. Yeah, this is a hard yes for me. I think Stevie's going to hit on this later, but I don't know if this is my ideal format. That's my bad that I can't hear stuff that I've listened to music too loud my whole life and just abused my ears. But I wish I could have seen this on the big screen. I've never missed movies more, but I don't know. At the same time, I probably wouldn't have been able to enjoy it so comfortably on the big screen with snacks and breaks and stuff. But definite yes for me. I love Hamilton now. I love the music now. Some of these songs are going to make it into my main Spotify playlist, which is pretty cool. Mikey, let's go to you next.
Yeah, it's a hard yes. I was pretty skeptical going into it. I don't really like musicals or watch them a whole bunch, but this was fun, and I really liked the rapping. I was really impressed with it, and choreography is insane. I think my biggest problem is this what you guys are touching on, Stevie, Pappy, where you don't like the format because there's just a lot going on, and it feels like there's a lot of camera cuts, and especially with all this choreography going on, it can just be a little overwhelming at sometimes. I feel like it reminds me of that meme of Taken 3 where Liam Neeson is jumping over the metal fence, but it's
14
30
cuts. Yeah,
30
it's so
cuts
funny.
all
30
stitched together
cuts.
for him. Yeah. It's just sometimes it just feels a little overwhelming when there's a lot going on. But other than that, I mean, I was really impressed with how well I could follow the story. I really was kind of scared about that for 3 hours. So I loved it. I thought it was great. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. I'll probably listen to the soundtrack again, but yeah, I thought it was great. And I thought the guy who played Burr and the guy who played Lafayette were probably my favorite parts. I actually didn't like Lin that much. I thought he was kind of whiny voiced when he was singing. I don't know. I didn't really like
He's not a great singer.
Voice too much, I guess.
He did write all of it, though.
Yeah, he reminded me of I don't want to be a pirate. Or something, just whining constantly. Maybe that's just his voice, but it's a hard yes for me.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a yes for me. Like I said, I had no idea what you were going to say. Lin-Manuel Miranda is my least favorite singer, I would say, in all of this by far. Josh, what about you?
Unfortunately, I don't have a rhyme rap to take us out of the pod like I did at the top. But I think one thing that goes unsaid in other reviews and here so far is just really how awesome George Washington is in this. He's so cool to see on screen. He's kind of like The Rock as a founding father or something. It's awesome. And I love how Alexander Hamilton is pretty much exactly Slim Shady in 8 Mile. It's all about just writing and being sharp. And I got so many vibes from the hip hop to just him with a pen and a pad and the laugh and stuff. I don't know. That was just a really fun watch. And honestly, it's kind of I would say it's even a seminal moment in my life because this whole genre of musical that's also hip hop just kind of blew my mind. And it's not often that media can do that to a person. So I really appreciate Disney doing this, even if it was about money. I enjoyed it. Huge yes. Rock hard dog.
Number 45, Mikey, on that list.
Nice.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty high up there.
Stevie, last but not least, no one knows which way you're going to go. Are you going to Jordan it or are you going to PK it with a yes? No one knows.
Oh, man. But how much future money is Disney going to make off this, though, for real? I mean, if they bought the rights, I have to imagine they're going to make money in all future shows, right?
I was going to ask if 75 mil was a steal.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the total rights. So I would say any future films, any future performances, any soundtracks that come out of this.
Those poor high schools that have those theater kids that want to do Hamilton are going to pay through the nose just so Disney can get their money back. But, man, this is so hard for me. You know what? I'm just going to say it. This is a soft no for me.
There it is.
I mean, I think Hamilton the musical is probably amazing. I love the music. The actors in it are so awesome. I mean, everything is so entertaining. Like, I would say...
But it's a no.
It's a soft no. Like, go listen to the album. Like, the music is fantastic. But 3 hours of Disney Plus with the constant cuts is just so overload. And it was really hard for me to connect with, even when I had subtitles on and watching it on my big screen. So, soft no, and it sucks because I love the rap genre. So, soft no.
Well, it doesn't even make sense.
What doesn't make sense?
The musical is a great American art form. Hip hop is one of our great American music styles. I guess Stevie just hates America, but I mean, what can you do?
You know it, dude. I hate it here.
That was a fun pod. Stevie, what do we have coming down the pipeline?
Man. Now I know what it feels like to be thrown at like that. That's
isn't that great?
That's a really good job, Pab.
I remained calm and I didn't try to shoot you with a gun, so you should feel very proud of yourself.
Let's see here.
Office Space.
Office Space coming down the line.
300.
Are you guys gonna have pieces of flair?
13 of them.
We already did it.
14 of them.
The 300th episode.
300th episode of Jaws 3D 100, the commentary.
Source Code.
Source Code. Eurovision. So much coming out.
Oh, I loved Eurovision
And
so much.
if there's any requests, we're still doing some pandemic requests. We're trying to get to them, so if there's anything you want us to spoil, please let us know. If you're able to find Hamilton because Mickey Mouse hasn't torn us down on a copyright claim off every platform, good for you. Thank you for listening. That was Spoilers.
I put myself back in the narrative. I stop wasting time on tears. I live another 50 years. It's not enough. I interview every...
Spoiler Man here. Our email is podcastspoilers@gmail.com. Twitter is @spoilers_pod. Our Instagram is Podcast Spoilers. It's lit. Josh Hensley from the Rutabaga wrote our theme song. Please support this podcast by leaving us an iTunes review.
Right on time, but I'm still not through. I ask myself, what would you do if you had more time? The Lord in His kindness, He gives me what you always wanted. He gives me more time. I raise funds in D.C. for the Washington Monument.
Tells my story.
I speak out against slavery. You could have done so much more if you only had time. And when my time is up, have I done enough? Will they tell your story? Oh, can I show you what I'm proudest of?
Hello, this is Josh from Indiana, Goshen, which is basically between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But let me get specific and put the plot in motion. At the end of this pod, I got a tiny notion. A yes dog so hard, Viggo Mortensen needs some lotion.
That was Spoilers.